Wow. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom. Seems like a lot of us are trying to figure out what the perfect thing is to say at the end of this week. Let's start with what we know. CBST has a rich history since its beginning nearly 52 years ago. We are a community formed by Jews who were in the desert. Yes, of course, the legacy of the wilderness goes back to the Exodus that follows this Torah portion. But I'm also talking about a time when LGBTQ Jews didn't enjoy the same acceptance that many of us do in so many of our circumstances today. From that very first Shabbat in 1973, when people carried Shabbat candlesticks in a shopping bag into a church basement, and this community came together for the first time and sang Vishamru, this group of mostly men, and in a more diverse community for every Shabbos since, for 52 years, has made this community a destination where you can stop, take a breath. Let's do it, yeah. How about one more? A deep breath at the end of the week. And no matter what happened during the week, you get to leave some of that outside our doors. CBST quickly became the home where you could come, where you could put aside some of those distractions of the larger world. And you could have the opportunity to connect with other people, connect with community, connect with the ideals of Shabbat, of peace, of possibility, knowing that there is always community waiting for us, and knowing that each of us is needed by that community. That there is connection, possibility, communal prayer, hope, and shared dreams, even in the darkest of dark days. We've just entered some dark days, just to state the obvious, but I'm just going to put that out there. This congregation's inception itself was an act of social justice. Right? In 1973. The fact that we existed then was a gigantic act of social justice, and our commitment to social justice has only grown stronger for everyone in this room, for the people who are not yet in this room, and for all of our neighbors as well. Recently, I learned that Irving Cooperberg, Alav Shalom, told Rob Cooper, also of blessed memory, who at that time was becoming sicker and sicker, that Rob's legacy to the synagogue had to include making sure that everyone at CBST was not only spiritually comfortable in the space, but physically comfortable as well, particularly the men whose bodies were wasting away from AIDS. Our Siddur says that we were matured by the AIDS epidemic in a tremendously painful way. I myself remember coming into the Bethune Street Sanctuary one week and noticing that the folding chairs that had previously been in there had been replaced by blue chairs, just like that one. And suddenly the space was more inviting, warmer, more beautiful, and most importantly, that physical sense of comfort could match what was already happening spiritually in the room. Rob left that money to purchase these soft chairs for our sanctuary. So this is the chair of Rob Cooper. And this is the chair of Irving Cooperberg. It is the chair that reminds us of our founders and our leaders, those whom we have lost, those we continue to love, and it reminds us of the love that they had for this community and their vision for a CBST that would grow and grow around the sweetness of joyful Shabbat rest each week. This chair traveled to our home here on 30th Street to remind us of our roots, to remind us of the impact of AIDS on our community, and to link our spaces one to the next to the next. I like to think that our entire collective past sits upon this chair. The lesbians, bisexuals, trans and non-binary, queer and straight people who linked their lives to the lives of our founders, who linked their destinies to this congregation. And our entire future springs forth from this chair as well. Zeh hakiseh shel Eliyahu hanavi zachor latov. This is the chair of Elijah the prophet of blessed memory, the prophet who inspires us to be God's partners in redemption, who appears in each generation through the most vulnerable members of our society, challenging us to consider whether we are doing enough to bring about redemption. And this is the chair of Miriam, the prophet, who accompanies and nourishes us along our way, who gives us the strength to speak the truth as we see it right in front of us, which will hasten the world to come. This week's Torah portion is filled with plagues. Thank you, Vaera. The physical process to liberation has begun. After hundreds of years of slavery, our ancestors leave Mitzrayim, and it does not take us long to find ourselves in the wilderness, an unlikely place for even the butchest among us to survive. And yet we do not only survive, we thrive. Our community was created by a generation of founders that lived and breathed CBST at every minute for nearly 20 years. And then CBST welcomed my predecessor, Rabbi Sharon Kleinbaum, in the early 1990s to provide pastoral care when our community was devastated by AIDS. For 32 years, our teacher and our rabbi, Rabbi Sharon Kleinbaum, led us with compassion, with wisdom, bravery, and creativity, and brought us to this place. 52 years of our founding, when we arrive here once a week, or more, vote for more, come on, more, and give and feel the respect and the fullness of each other's experiences, we get to bring that sense of fullness wherever we go. And oh, the places we'll go. There will be demonstrations to attend, halls of government to march in, letters to sign. It is already clear in this week's executive orders that many people who enjoyed relative comfort in the United States just a week ago have had the ground ripped from under their feet, have been thrust back into the wilderness that they were hoping to leave behind us. It is our duty, as we showed up for one another in those earliest days, to continue to show up for one another now. How are we going to do this together? We're going to build on that same resilience, agility, belonging, and power that our ancestors had in their various wildernesses. CBST's ethos springs from partnerships, collaborations among congregants and board members, clergy and staff. We share our lives with one another, both our tzuras and our simchas. Simply showing up for one another as we have for 52 years is the basic building block of this community. And looking around this sanctuary, and I'm talking about you all out there behind those cameras in our broader sanctuary, looking around at all of you reminds me that you know that the more that you get involved in CBST, the more you understand that showing up with your full, authentic self, to be present to someone else in every aspect of their identity, their own full, authentic self, that experience in and of itself is nothing less than a transformative spiritual practice. We need to strengthen CBST's historic culture of volunteerism. Our staff team has gone from 1 to 2 dozen. See what I did there? Who serve more than 1,200 members. I'm excited to work with you to reimagine what leadership, what belonging, and what engagement mean for CBST's next 50 years. This work will help us fulfill the mission of our founders in a changing world so that we can find meaning in task force meetings and meaning in Torah study, when we are a refuge for our immigrant neighbors who have yet to find their permanent homes, and when people need the sweet, generative rest and community of Shabbos. We will lift up the intergenerational nature of CBST. The younger people in our community can learn from the plagues that older people in our community have experienced. And can learn from the collective wisdom. We're going to all learn from the collective wisdom of one another, and we need it. We need that right now more than ever. So let us build a CBST with ongoing membership of our younger congregants by our elders, while our younger members capture the oral history, the legacies of our elder congregants, where 3 or 4 generations in this community are in a room together to support someone at a time of loss or to say mazel tov to someone on the most beautiful, beautiful simcha. And as we keep increasing our focus on caring for one another, that sense will travel beyond our walls into a city, a country, a world that desperately needs it right now. Tonight, I am aware of the people who have connected with this community as Jews by choice, as partners and friends of Jews, and yes, straight Jews as well, who might have arrived as allies and now cannot imagine being anywhere else. Ivan, Sherry, Simon, Nancy, Lori, so many of you, I see you, Mom, Dad. They joined right after I did. Tonight, I am aware, and you're all aware, that it's time to give extra love and attention to people who have already been targets of policy changes these past few days. That's a wake-up call to remind us. Thank you, Congressman. All good. Thousands of years before this terrifying shift in power emerged, Jews learned and taught that every human being was created b'tselem Elohim, in the image of God. No conditions, full stop, b'tselem Elohim. And it is our job to eschew the propaganda that divides us from one another, that scapegoats us by exploiting anti-Semitism, to eschew litmus tests about our relationships with Israel, or the singling out of some of us Jews for special privileges. I am so humbled that you have invited me to lead you in this next phase of the congregation's journey. I am humbled by the conversations that we've had these past 7 months, humbled by the honest feedback you've given me about strengthening my own leadership. I am thrilled about the strong relationships we have already created and excited to hear more of your CBST stories so we can continue our collective future story, a story that will continue the transformational work of our collective past as individuals and as a congregation. So tonight, I promise that I will give my all to this holy community. Tonight, I promise that I am here, I will be here, listening to you together with our clergy team, our staff, our board. This is an inflection point of gravity and joy. And tonight, I promise that we will continue to be a congregation that lives the Jewish imperatives of Tikkun HaNefesh and Tikkun Olam, that centers the work of transforming lives and bringing about a more just society. And every Shabbat, please God, we will sanctify creation. The process of creation did not just happen in the mythic 6 days that we read about in our sacred stories. This process of creation is ongoing. We are God's partners in that creation. And this community will take our energy, our creativity, our experience, our goodwill, and spread it among our congregation. Fill these walls until they overflow with all of that goodness, and do our part as a community to contribute to the redemption of the world. I'm thrilled to have started this journey with you. I'm honored to seek to divine with you, to lead you, to study with you, to build the kind of future that the world needs with you. I am humbled, awed, and excited about this sacred time and the sacred work we are going to do together. Shabbat Shalom.